Hey, what up, Super Family Sponsees? My name is Voss. I'm an alcoholic. You're on the Vossaholic channel. It is 11 a.m. brunch time. I'm making this video now because I just sort of clarified the beginnings of what I do with sponsees when they're newly sober. Okay, I always love this painting. You know, it's really good to get out of yourself, and we use drugs and alcohol to get out of ourselves. And so I'm a creative type. I like doing woodwork and stuff. And I always talk about sober hobbies. So this painting is up here. It's jam-packed, right? There's a lot going on there. And I want to encourage you to have sober hobbies where you have fulfillment and escape in your mind through doing something that's positive, that maybe you did as a kid, that serves you to have an escape from your stress and pressure. Because look, being newly sober, continuing your recovery, growing in your life with life on life's terms is entirely challenging, rewarding, but a constant struggle of stress, right? Now, what I'm looking to do is I want to kind of discuss where I'm at as a sponsor and why I came to be this way. Because, you know, I have figured out a lot of strategies where everything requires the right medicine. Okay, I'm in my comfy shirt, still in my jammies. My work schedule is going to ramp up here in October, and it's going to be crazy, wonky busy, and I'm grateful for that. And so the best years of my life have been on 15-minute time hacks. Hacks is a military term. I'm a U.S. Army combat veteran, and it's important to me that I instill in you, if I'm sponsoring you or you're in the sponsee line here, that we sort of understand the importance of discipline, okay, and the measures that are necessary in the very beginning to, in my opinion, create a really deep and strong foundation. So look, I'm a student of many things, and one of the things that I've learned about that I don't have full ownership on is how to build a home, like an actual, like, perk the land. You got to check it for granite, where the hard surface is. You got to get a backhoe and dig the actual foundation. Probably have to have an architect do your pre-planning and designs for the home. And you have to then, once the hole is built properly, you have to then build the foundation. Okay, and the foundation is what I talk about a lot with my sponsees. You're building a foundation for the rest of your life. Okay, so it's a spiritual house, if you will. It's an imaginary house. It's your whole world. You know, your recovery starts in the early beginning. How you dig your foundation, how you set the wood planks so that you can set your concrete, how you make your concrete, how you pour your concrete, how your concrete has to have what's called rebar in it, which is the metal iron. Okay, I made patio blocks as a teenager, one of my first jobs, so I can have money for the prom, new hockey equipment, and a car, and pay insurance, and learn how to start adulting. And I had to scrape that bucket out and clean that cement. I hated it. We always kind of remember, this is like 35 years ago, or 30 years ago, we always kind of remember what the most painful thing was in our life, right? And when we did the most production and the most work. And these are lifelong memories, and they are the damn hardest thing to do typically. So, look, I haven't like set up the exact amount of sponsors that I've had. And look, you know, if my secret sauce isn't for you, you know, if I'm not the best sponsor that you think is available and you have access to, or if it's a personality clash, you know, I encourage you to at some point recognize in your heart of hearts if you feel that you honestly do not want me as a sponsor, then I would highly recommend finding the right sponsor and then working with them, because, it's sort of like picking a woman to marry, or if you're, if you like men, it's sort of like picking a man to marry. I'll sponsor anyone except women. If you're gay, I sponsored a gay man before, and it was great. And there was an awkward situation around that didn't involve him and I. Actually, it was an outside matter that if you ever ask me, I'll share with you. But I'm in this to win it. I'm in it to win it. I get such joy and pride and health and happiness from being of service, because it helps me not to forget. And you know what? When I reflect back on the years that I wasn't, that I was weak in my recovery, and I had kind of, just before I had gone out, was I helping anyone? No. Imagine that. Wow. Amazing. Imagine how, figure that. So for me, I want you to know that if you've asked me to sponsor you, we're going to be on this thing every day, okay? One of the things that is personal to me that I developed that I think is smart and wise is when a guy tells me a sobriety date, like mine's the 20th of April, 4/20. I didn't choose that date. I thought it was the 18th or 19th. Well, my first meeting in this rodeo, which is my recovery, my sobriety, in 2015, the 9th of April, I bounced off a Honda Accord that I thought had made the exit, and I was turning off to take a call that I thought was a solar appointment that was canceling their appointment. And I made money up front, day of, as soon as the contract was signed, and then 90 days later, when the appointment got installed, then I had the other half of my commission. And it was very important for me to handle, is this a reschedule, whatever. So I shouldn't have my phone earplugs in under my helmet, but I did, because I was accountable to my job. And I bounced off this car, and I skipped along the 95 north in Vegas at we were all doing 80, so I was probably slowing down to about 65, and I probably came off the thing at 60, I'd say, and I had all the protective jacket and helmet equipment on, and my jeans were all ripped, and I had road rash on my legs, and that's my bottom. And the video before this on this new phone, I talked about my bottom, and I got about halfway through the beginnings of my findings of alcohol. And it's important for me to be very thorough, because I'm only doing this once. It's COVID, people are home, I'm trying to be proactive, I'm trying to use my time, because with the new career that I'm going into, I really want to push 50-hour weeks. Or more. 40 to 50, 55 is a good pace for me, with like maybe 5 weeks of vacation throughout the year where I can go places, hopefully. So moving forward, look, there's going to be a lot of things, little tiny finite nuances. And then why I say this and why I do this is because my uncle was a big influence in my life, okay? He was in the Navy, he was an alcoholic, and he taught me baseball. He encouraged, since I could speak, like 2, he was talking to me about baseball. He played baseball. He was a great baseball player. His stepfather, we'll call him Dante. That's not his real name. I don't use real names, and I use like kind of funny, quirky, cool names that work for me. Okay, Dante Sanfero. This guy wasn't the best guy in my family, but he was a great baseball coach to my uncle. And I loved baseball. So there's some things you just freaking love, and I loved baseball. And I was a good catcher. I could command the field. I had awesome throws to second base. I could hit. It all worked. So back to this. When you learn something, you have mastery, And there's all these YouTube videos about motivators that talk about it. I think it takes 10,000 hours to master something, or 1,000 hours, one of those. But look, baseball, to me, I mastered. And so by the time I was 16, okay, having it in my world for 14 years, which is a lot of hours and a lot of games and pro games and going to Fenway Park, Boston Red Sox, and playing and watching games, I got really good and I coached a team my junior year. And I beat out our athletic director, okay, for the town of 4 little villages, 5 really. I had this one team, and they were like the Bad News Bears. They weren't good. They sucked. But what I did was I cultivated that team like a farmer, okay? Had my first car, got there early. We jogged the field, did 2 laps. We got our rust off, got the wiggles out. They bullshitted. They got their like little talk in. It's after school. They think it's recess. And I call it the wiggles. I get their wiggles out. So then I got them honed in and laser focused, locked in for what we're going to do. Next, we're going to hit balls and do some fielding. Okay, we're going to warm up. And then we're going to do some batting and work on some batting practice. Okay, everybody gets a turn. And then I had to assess values of where people are best positioned. Somebody really wants to be the catcher. This kid, Jake, wanted to be the catcher, and he's incredibly successful today, and he was a phenomenal catcher. I mean, talk about, he one time protected the plate against a kid who was 30 pounds more than him. Okay, he was younger, and the kids I coached were like, we had, I think, 2 5th graders, 1 4th grader who never played. He's too young, too small, couldn't play him. But I gave him a jersey. He was like our bat boy. He wanted to participate. I had like 14, 15 kids all together. And the 2 5th graders, one was my neighbor, and he was the smallest kid in the world. And he's like, he won the entire Western Mass basketball coaching championship, which is a big freaking deal from where I'm from, because he was just a great athlete. Baseball and football, and basketball, right? I mean, he's a point guard, and he was a great coach. So coaches know how to see where you need improvement, and they know how to approach the challenge of assessing and turning up that challenge for you to make you better, okay? So I'm referencing the baseball thing because, look, it wasn't a perfect season. It wasn't a dominant team, but I lit those kids up. And that's a personal gift of mine that I have within, is to look at a person, understand who they are, how they roll, what makes them tick, what motivates them, where they're deficient, and then work on those deficiencies, okay? So in the baseball field, I had one kid, Tommy, we'll call him Tommy D. Okay, can't find him. I don't know where he went. This kid was very emotional. He had emotional issues. Parents were looking to divorce. He moved up from Florida. Okay, and so the kid played a lot of baseball down there. He's a good pitcher. Good, not great, not awesome. He was good, basically good. Okay, and so what I did for years and years of being a catcher, I knew how to work with him as a pitcher where he could tweak his pitching a little bit, where he didn't overdo it. I didn't gas him out. We had 2 backup pitchers, and they got time, okay? And so what I did was, me as the coach, I had to control the flow of the production, okay? So with these guys, if one guy was having an emotional day, he's not going to pitch. It doesn't mean that he's fired, nothing dramatic like that. It just means that that's not his day, okay? Carpe diem, seize the day. So with Tommy, man, that movie came out, Wild Thing, with Charlie Sheen. We're talking like 1988. And I had like a boom box, and I came and I played Jimi Hendrix, like live, a recording that I had of Wild Thing. Wild Thing, you make my heart sing. And these kids they're children, right? They're like, 4th grade, the youngest is 9, up to 8th grade, which is 13, maybe 14 if they stayed back, okay? A very different spectrum that probably never heard music from the 60s, okay? And I was a very young child in the 70s, so the 60s was kind of whoa, so they never heard these songs. And I was cranking Jimi Hendrix, and these kids were going nuts. They were loving it. I was a fun coach, okay? If they screwed up, like, hey, I don't care if you're my star player or up at the top 3, top 5, you're going to run a lap, okay? So, you're no different. It gives you humility. It's a punishment, but it helps you to learn, okay? And I don't necessarily at all incorporate that into what I've learned in AA with punishment. No, because it says in the big book that we don't criticize, okay? So in a way, we have to be very delicate with newcomers, especially guys that have been around that like their egos swell. This is a little bit different of a medicine, I'd call it. I will jokingly call them out to a behavior that was, from in my perception of it, was egotistical, and I will joke about that so that the joke seeps into their head. It's not, because look, as alcoholics, we're super defiant. So if you tell us not to do something, or you push against us, or it says in the big book, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Look, if you tell someone don't do something, we're all kind of immature sometimes, especially when we're new. Don't do this, they're going to do it. So I had to tell a friend of mine who was on a 10.5-month vacation that we'll call J-Rad, and I love you, bro, if you ever see this, but I don't accept certain behaviors because I care more about your sobriety than I do your feelings. So I'm going to crush your mofo ego and don't care about your ego. I care about your sobriety. And I've watched you for 4.5 years, and I know you well enough to say that's the right medicine. So look, call times, they're important. Your sobriety date will be your call time. If you're a night owl, it'll probably be in the morning, okay? If you're an early bird, it'll probably be in the morning. I don't see, I'm of service to you. I don't see much value in taking a call late at night on appointment, because we shouldn't be like wound up at night. We should be, as men, getting up early when we have the most testosterone, stretching, going to the gym, getting in a meeting and going to work, or going to a meeting, going to the gym and then going to work. And if you have to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, 3 in the morning, I would hope to be up at 3 in the morning. My perfect self, to reach optimal, incredible production in my life, has me up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Whereas I hit the gym, which is part of my priorities. I'll go into that later when we have a sit down, and you'll write that down in your journal. So if you're a new guy, you need to have, I'll go through the list, okay? You need to have a big book, okay? A 12 and 12, so we can work the steps. A couple, 2, 3 journals. You can go to Costco, get them there. Pens, a call time in the beginning, okay? So as I see a routine of structure and discipline built that's going to be very strong for your foundation, then we can start to frame the house, okay? And then as we start to frame the house, then we're going to put in the electrical and the plumbing, okay, which are 2 big major events when you're building a house. You have to have a licensed plumber. It has to be up to code. The electrician has to have everything up to code and proper. You have to have everything planned out. People change their minds in the build sometimes, and you have to do wonky things. So adapt and overcome. We're gonna stay on a structure, but things change. I'm open to that too. Another tidbit is, if you're married and I sponsor you, you have to have a date night for your wife. Okay, great bonus, right? Great reward. But you are changing. You're not going to be, like when we're drinking, we're that romantic, fun, say whatever, creative type, and women love that, okay? But as we sort of get sober, we're necessarily not like that, because we're induced by alcohol. We're under the guise of alcohol, and so that romanticism changes with our partners. And I'm gonna say, if you're gay, then if it changes with your spouse, if you're in that relationship. If you're single, I would say stay single for a year, get to know yourself. These are other huge fundamentals for building the foundation. Work your steps, get to know yourself. If you really need to go out there and have a hot date and have fun, but set the precedent that, look, this if you're having the talk, we all have the talk before we do the deed, do the nasty. Look, pages 68 and 69 have more details on that in sobriety. But look, we all have our needs, right? So, if you are going to have that intimacy with another being, another human person, another human being, make sure you set up the reality of it. Like, I'm not looking to have a relationship. I'm, be honest with them. Be honest. They'll respect you. And I just want to have fun, okay? And hopefully you'll do it safely. And that way there you don't have any, long-term consequences. That's why I say that. And I get into shit. I don't care. I'm going to get into the shit. I'm digging it because it'll affect your recovery if sometimes it'll shame you if you have issues around it. Like, you don't want to invite that person to your family or your home or your business or work or be around, meetings. And I get it. It's on the sly. And you have to have the talk, because this is literally what happens. When you meet people and you get to know them, there might be that urgency and that need to fornicate with them, okay? And as alcoholics, we're leaving one addiction and we're trying to kind of get normalized, if that's even a thing. With the sex piece, it's sort of like, you may encounter someone in recovery that you want to sleep with. Quite often. It happens. And big surprise, with co-ed meetings or whatever your sexuality preferences are. And if that does occur, it's been my personal experience that when we use people for the sex act, for that elation of sexuality, for the orgasm, for the titillation, if you will, of excitement that comes from that ethereal feeling, it's amazing, right? And you feel love. It's not love, it's lust. Okay, y'all are fucking, and that's all it is. Okay, so preface that's what that is. That there's no attachment, and the problem is that typically biologically, the way women are, chemically made, when they have an orgasm, they produce a chemical that makes them focused only on that one man, whereas men, we're swinging dicks, and it's just like we're sowing our seed. It's like we're lions, and we're out there just trying to procreate, and it's a different connection. And so usually women get their hearts broken, or they get all into their head about, or even guys, newcomers, they meet the girl, or if you're gay, they meet the guy, and then it's like, they think things are going to last forever, and forever in an alcoholic world is like 5 years, it's like we have immediate gratification problems. So I bring this up as a big piece because it's sort of, the beaver trail leads to wine country. With breakups, it has a lot of self-pity and a lot of regret and a lot of grieving and remorse. And these are feelings that, you may not be able to handle, you don't want to handle or deep dive into or process. You're getting over a loss, and you might want to escape through drugs and alcohol. So you have to kind of set the boundary and the perimeter of, and be in reality of what it is, and this is what it is. It's not this, and you have to be honest with the person. And I've tried it. It's that phrase, when we use people, places, and things, we'll use again. And so if you're using a person for sex, or an employer for money, and you're stealing from them, you're taking from them, you're a taker. That's pretty much how we are in our cups, in our drug addiction and stuff. We're just straight up takers. Then, you might catch some karma and some feelings, and you might be out. Fuck this, fuck AA, fuck Voss, fuck this sponsorship shit, fuck these people, you get the fuckets, okay? And I don't like to swear, I try not to, but it kind of conveys the emotion, all right? 25 minutes in. I'm a busy guy these days. It feels good, and I have to compartmentalize and do time management on most everything. It's really critical. I have work meetings at 8:30 in the morning. I have customers that maybe they're off work and the kids are in bed, and then they can talk at like 8 or 9 at night, and I work off deadlines. I work off time management. It's really critical. And that's who I am. That's what I do. But I don't want to tell you so you don't feel like you've been told, because alcoholics are defiant. The regimen that I set up with my guys who've asked me to be their sponsor are things in the imaginary tool belt of 1,000 things, 1,000 tools that, here's a good one for you, they're the right tool for the right nut, because you might be a little nutty when you're newly sober. So 90 meetings in 90 days. If you're brand new, 90 meetings in 90 days. I heard that, and a buddy told me he did 450. I did 450. He did 365 and 365. I did 450 that year. Okay? So, for me, I'm sort of a lone wolf. I didn't have a dad. My mom is kind of wacky with her own addictions, and we don't get along the greatest. It takes effort, and it's hard to have that relationship with my own mother because of her selfishness and self-centeredness from her addictions. Aunt's an alcoholic, uncle's an alcoholic, the other one's a stoner, grandmother passed. You know, a lot of people, how they have like a full nuclear family. I don't have that, okay? So, for me, that's a pity party. And here's a nugget for you. Poor me, I don't have this, pour me that. You know, pour me another drink. That's what's going to happen. You know, you get into that sort of pour me another drink. There's a nugget. So, when we're working the steps, okay, we're going to work the steps in order for a reason. I don't need you to go out and make apologies to family members. That's step 9, okay? You're on step 1. And look, I'm a 3-strike policy guy. Really, it's 5. But it depends on how busy I am. And if people are fucking around and they ask for my help, they're assholes. And I've sponsored guys before that are about my same age. And they're like, they get my input, and it's hard thought, and I've spent time on it, but I've had it. I don't want to spend or waste my time on people who ask for help and don't execute what I suggest because they're sponsoring themselves. And that's an acronym for nuts. Not using the steps, not using the sponsor. And that's happened. It's been unfortunate. I sponsored a guy, we'll call him the Coleman Camper. And I love the man. He's a good dude. He's actually a month older than me. He's physically intimidating, college lineman. Really a great guy, good spouse, good father to the kids that he's fathered. However, he is a yes man. And, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, yes, yeah. Fuck that shit. That's what people do here in Utah. Is they're so polite to your face, and yes, they're so agreeable, and then behind your back, they're just doing, they're fucking wilding. They're doing whatever they want. And it's disrespectful for me. That's how it feels. I'm in this conversation with them, and they don't typically fully stay sober, and this individual, it's sad. I'll share with you his projection. Okay, he got a year. He put me on blast in a meeting. Please, never ever do that. Okay, and I would encourage you to say that. You know, you could talk about you have a sponsor, and you have these regimented things that you do that help you stay sober, that were suggested by this sponsor. I don't want you name dropping, okay? Because it gasses my ego, and that's what we all have problems with. That's why we drink. That's why we go back out drinking, is because we get into our egos, and ego is a metaphor for edging God out, okay? So that's my higher power. That's step 12 stuff. Step 3 too, but this individual decided to move out of sober living, and I was like, no, man, that's not a good idea. And he's like, no, my wife, she wants me back, and the money we're spending, they weren't hurting for money, okay? All these bullshit excuses. And with sponsoring someone, you don't really want to engage in a conversation that has more and more friction, that escalates to almost like a competition for power. And that's what happens when you sponsor guys that are about your age or even older. I suggest that if someone is older than you and they ask you to sponsor them, that you run it by your sponsor, hopefully that's still me, and we talk about it. And what I'm going to say is no, because there's always been a locking of the horns. Like you think of bull moose and elks and that masculine power struggle, okay? They lock horns, and they're going to fight you on different things, and it's not a suggestion, and then it aggravates you, and you lose really the morale and motivation to want to be a humble servant. We do not govern, and governing is about power. So you're trying to enhance